Remember what he said to Adam? He put two magical trees in the middle of the garden, and the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that's obviously just a fable with a moral about the results of choices made or actions taken. But some people miss the whole point of the story by reading it literally and when they can't understand metaphor. However, still, within the confines of the fable, God told Adam not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for if he ever did, then on that day Adam would surely die. And the serpent comes along and says, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes will be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And it says right after that, he says, they ate and their eyes were open. And it happened immediately on that day, just like the serpent said. So the serpent told the truth, but God lied, just like the serpent said he did. Because they didn't die on that day, like God said they would. Instead, they went on to live for nearly 1,000 years, longer than most immortals. Adam lived longer than Dracula. Even the doctor had already reincarnated like 10 times before he got that old. But Adam only had one incarnation, 1,000 years, one life, one body. We humble creatures would consider that immortality. Now, the people who are desperate to believe in lies and who will only make believe in lies and who don't even want to know what the truth is make the excuse that Adam did die on that day, in the sense that he brought death into the world and that he was no longer immortal. He was never supposed to be immortal. The Bible has people living to ridiculously long ages, largely because the stories were poorly translated from what was originally a sexagesimal numeric system, where real ages were commonly and erroneously multiplied by 10 or by 12 because of a confusing system of notation, a weird way of counting on your fingers at base 60. Because nobody had invented zero yet, or not formally so anyway. But the way that we know that Adam was always mortal was that he would die eventually, not in that day, but someday. The way we knew that he was mortal was that he had to eat. Gave him all of the fruit in the garden that he could eat, and he has to eat. If he does, what happens if he doesn't eat, right? He's going to die. So the second reason that we know that Adam was always mortal was explained by God himself at the end of chapter 3, Genesis 3, where God said that he had to get Adam and Eve out of the garden before they reach out for the fruit of the tree of life, because if they eat of that, then they would live forever. Meaning that if they didn't eat of the fruit of tree of life, they would not live forever. They would eventually die. That was the choice, and God wasn't going to let him have them both ways. I often ask believers, what if Adam never ate from either tree? What if he never ate anything at all? They don't understand and won't understand or accept that what is not just physically but logically true, and I know that logic doesn't apply here, but it means that Adam would eventually starve to death. Adam didn't bring death into the world, God did, when he created people in the form of animals that have to ingest and digest living things or recently deceased things in order to live. We could have generated our own food like plants do, but the Bible God loves nothing more than death and killing, so that's how he made this world, according to the story. According to this fable, we die because God wanted us to die. He set the trap, he laid the bait right in the middle of the garden, and he put the talking snake in there to trigger it. He knew the snake would tell the truth because the serpent was not Satan. The Bible never said he was. That's not a lie from the author. That's a lie the reader tells themselves. The Bible doesn't even allow that the serpent could have been Satan, because the serpent in the beginning is a different one from the one standing on the beach with 7 heads in Revelations. And those serpents are both different from the Pharisees that Jesus accused of being serpents and the sons of Satan, which is another lie that Jesus told, or it would be if you didn't understand how to interpret common colloquial insults figuratively instead of literally. Because the serpent in the garden didn't do anything wrong except for telling the truth, and you know how religion hates that. Then the serpent was cursed to crawl in his belly for all the rest of his days. The first time we see Satan mentioned by name is in a story chronologically after this one, where he was said to be walking. But how could Satan be walking around if he had previously been cursed by God to crawl on his belly forever after? Because Satan and the serpent are different characters. And in that later story, God and Satan haven't even had a falling out yet. So Satan can't have been the serpent. Serpent is not the Lord of lies. God is.